They say New York has a rhythm of its own, a heartbeat that never rests, a light that never dims. And maybe that's why I came here, chasing something I didn't even have the words for. I was 38, tired of small-town silences and nights that echoed with nothing but the sound of my own thoughts. For years, I had convinced myself that love was something meant for other people, younger, braver, luckier people, but not me. I had been through heartbreak, through the kind of loneliness that crawls into your chest and makes a home there, and one morning, I just packed up and left. I told no one except my sister, who hugged me and said, "Maybe New York will heal what the years took." I arrived in the city on a cold November afternoon. The streets were wet from the rain, reflections of yellow taxis stretching across the pavement like rivers of gold. People rushed past me with umbrellas, faces hidden in scarves, the kind of rhythm that made you feel both invisible and alive at the same time. I found a small apartment on the Upper West Side. Nothing fancy, but it had a window that looked out over a coffee shop on the corner. Every morning, I'd watch people come and go, couples holding hands, friends laughing, baristas waving at familiar faces, and I'd wonder what it would feel like to belong like that again. I'd make my coffee, sit by the window, and pretend I wasn't searching for something. But the truth is I was searching for warmth, for connection, for a reason to believe that love doesn't expire when you've already lived through so much of life. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the city started to feel less like noise and more like music. I began to walk more, talk to strangers, smile at street performers. New York, in all its chaos, began to whisper something soft to me, that maybe, just maybe, it was never too late to begin again. I didn't know it then, but love was closer than I thought, waiting for me just across the street, where the smell of roasted coffee and rain-soaked dreams would soon change everything I believed about timing, fate, and second chances. It happened on one of those mornings when the city felt softer than usual, the kind of morning when the rain doesn't pour, it lingers, like a memory that refuses to fade. I had my mug of coffee in hand, standing by my window as usual, when I noticed him. He was sitting by the glass at the café across the street, a book in one hand, steam curling from his cup like a lazy ghost. There was something about him, not the kind of instant attraction you see in movies, but something gentler, deeper. His eyes weren't looking for anyone, and that, I think, is what caught me. I saw him again the next day and the next, sometimes reading, sometimes typing on his laptop, sometimes just watching the rain fall, just like I did. Days passed before we exchanged our first smile, the kind of small, accidental smile that lingers longer than it should. I don't know why, but that morning I felt something stir in me that I hadn't felt in years. A pull, a warmth, a quiet curiosity. I told myself it was nothing. But the next morning, I found myself dressing a little differently, brushing my hair with more care, wearing the soft pink scarf I hadn't touched since forever. I crossed the street for the first time that day, pretending I was just craving a new cup of coffee. The bell over the cafe door chimed softly, and he looked up. His eyes met mine, steady, kind, and in that instant, it felt like the city's noise faded just a little. I ordered a latte, found a seat near the window, and tried to act casual. But every time I looked up, he was there, reading, occasionally glancing at me, and smiling that quiet, knowing smile that says, "I see you too." It became a routine. We never spoke at first, just exchanged nods and smiles, two strangers sharing a silent understanding. Then one morning, he broke the silence. "You always take the window seat," he said with a grin. "I think we might be neighbors." I laughed, maybe too quickly, and said, "Or maybe just two creatures of habit." That's how it started, not with fireworks, not with drama, but with the kind of calm that makes you feel safe. His name was Daniel, a writer, recently divorced, new to the city like me. Maybe that's why we understood each other. Two souls slightly bruised by life, learning how to breathe again. We started talking every morning. Coffee became conversation, and conversation became comfort. I didn't realize it then, but my mornings had stopped being lonely. They had become ours. Winter in New York has a way of making you fall in love with the small things, the sound of boots against the pavement, the glow of streetlights on snow, the way strangers huddle under the same awning to escape the cold. Daniel and I began to share more than coffee. We shared stories. He'd tell me about the book he was writing, a story about second chances, though I didn't realize at the time he was writing about both of us. I told him about my life back home, about the years I'd spent caring for everyone but myself, about the silence that came after love ended, and the fear that maybe I'd never feel that spark again. He listened, truly listened, not the way people do when they're waiting to speak, but the way someone listens when they want to understand you. We started taking walks after work, wandering through Central Park as snowflakes gathered on our coats, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. We just walked side by side, the kind of quiet that says more than words ever could. One evening, as we crossed the bridge near the lake, I slipped a little on the ice and he caught my hand. I still remember the warmth of that touch, the way time seemed to pause. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just deeply, humanly real. For a moment, I saw in his eyes something that scared me, not because it was dangerous, but because it was honest. It was the look of someone who had also been lonely, who had also lost, and who, against all odds, was starting to hope again. From that night on, everything changed, quietly but completely. We started cooking dinners together in my apartment. Simple meals, pasta and wine. Laughter filling spaces that once held silence. He'd read me pieces of his book, and I'd tease him about the way his characters always found love in coffee shops. Some nights, we'd sit by the window, watching the city lights flicker across the wet streets, and he'd rest his hand on mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to end. I felt like I was finally living again. Love didn't come to me with fireworks or grand gestures. It came softly, in the warmth of shared mornings, in the rhythm of footsteps beside mine, in the safety of someone who didn't want to change me, just see me. And maybe that's what love really is, not about finding someone new, but finding yourself again in their eyes. Spring came slowly that year, as if New York itself was taking a deep breath after the long winter. The trees along the park began to bloom, soft pink petals dancing in the wind, and the city smelled of rain and new beginnings. By then, Daniel had become part of my days the way sunrise becomes part of the morning, quietly, naturally, completely. We weren't rushing toward anything. We were simply becoming. One rainy afternoon, we sat in the same café where we first met. The world outside was gray and dripping, but inside, everything felt warm. The hum of quiet conversations, the faint scent of coffee, the steady rhythm of raindrops against glass. Daniel looked at me, and there was that same gentleness in his eyes, the same spark that had slowly, patiently changed the course of my life. He said, "You know, I moved to this city to start over. I didn't think I'd find a story worth writing again." I smiled, tracing the rim of my cup. "And did you?" I asked, half teasing. He nodded, then reached across the table and took my hand. "I did," he said softly. "You." I laughed, trying to hide the way my heart was racing, but I couldn't stop smiling. Outside, the rain began to pour harder, blurring the world into silver and light. He stood, came around the table, and pulled me close. It wasn't a movie kiss, it wasn't dramatic, it was tender, real, filled with the kind of emotion that feels like coming home. In that moment, I realized how long it had been since I had felt truly seen, truly wanted. It wasn't just about romance, it was about life, about hope, about knowing that even after everything, the heart still remembers how to love. We stayed there for hours, talking about the past, the future, and the strange magic that had brought two lonely souls to the same rainy corner of New York. When we finally stepped outside, the city was glowing, the streets slick with reflections, the air soft and clean. He held my hand as we walked, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what had been lost, only about what I had found. Now, when I wake up each morning and look out that same window, I don't see strangers anymore. I see life, love, and the quiet beauty of second chances. Maybe love doesn't always come when you expect it. Maybe it doesn't come loud or fast. Sometimes, it walks beside you slowly, smiles across a street, and waits, patiently, for the moment you're ready to see it. And I did. In the city that never sleeps, I found the peace I had been searching for, not in the noise, not in the lights, but in the eyes of a man who reminded me that it's never too late to fall in love again.